All right, what's up, everybody?
Everybody's filtering in
Welcome
here.
to the Crew and A call. It feels like it's been a long time since we've we were just talking about the schedule of the last several weeks has just been kind of nuts on everybody's end between the holidays. For all those folks over here in the States, we had 4th of July and travel and everything. So it's good to see all these faces. It's good to have
Yeah.
everybody back.
It's been a minute. Haven't seen Jim in a while. He's back.
Yeah, right.
Been trading emails quite a bit, but good to see your smiling face there, Jim.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Looking forward to it.
Nice. Now we say that, and then Jeff's heading to Europe next week.
Yeah. Heading over to Amsterdam, then taking a little cruise on the Rhine River.
Oh, wow.
And heading down to Frankfurt. Yeah. So very exciting stuff. So I hate to say it, but we're gonna miss a couple more Crew and A calls over the next couple of weeks. We're good for next week, but then the week after that, we're gonna be taking a little pause again. But yeah, so welcome everybody to the Crew and A. We've got a lot of great golf being played right now. We've got what the Scottish Open is going on. I love when golf is going on overseas, because for us now it's morning golf. You wake up, cup of coffee, and golf is already on TV, and we've got just playing in the gym all day long. So this is a lot of fun. We're gonna have it for 2 weeks, obviously, with the British coming up as well. Excuse me, the Open.
Yeah, the
Championship.
British, you're aging yourself now.
Coming up. So but no, really exciting stuff. Also, hopefully, with it being the Scottish Open and the DP Tour and the PGA kind of combining on the Scottish, and then also having the Barbasol Championship over here in the States, could be a good week for our boy Hayden Buckley and some of the other young guns that are playing on the PGA Tour. This is a great week for them to kind of step up and get some points, earn some checks, and get their PGA Tour cards solidified for next year. So should be a great couple of weeks of golf here.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It's home. So Marina, you won't happen to be in Frankfurt in a week and a half, will you?
No, I wish. Can't you pop over to London, please, and we could meet up for a beer or something?
I wish.
Or you could come down and have a round at Livingston down in the south with me. That would be great. Next time.
Yeah. No, I really do wish that we could extend the trip a little bit. We have a cousin who just left. They were over in Switzerland, and when we were supposed to do this trip 2 years ago, and they lived in Zurich, and so we were going to then extend the trip to go to Zurich at the end, and then it turns out they're moving back like maybe as we speak. So missed them. But it'd be great to actually do a little bit more traveling around, all over the place over there while we're over there. But it's gonna be hard because it's an adult only trip. So my parents, my siblings, but our kids are going to be over here in the States still. So it's going to be a very interesting and enjoyable trip. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, probably a couple beers.
Maybe a couple. Does Germany have beer? I don't read.
They're not known for it, I don't believe.
Okay, I don't think so.
Awesome. Or any European countries. Yeah. Ireland, they don't drink. Spain, right. None of them.
None of them. What else we got going on?
Well, it's freaking hot. I know that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the impetus of this call. What we're going to talk about today is simply, what do you do when it is this hot, humid? You're playing a ton of golf. I know Marina had sent in a great question that'll fall right in line with this topic as well. But yeah, I mean, here in St. Louis, we've had temperatures in the low hundreds this week. 90s, hundreds, with a heat index into the 100 and teens, and it's been pretty crazy. In fact, I played golf on probably the hottest day so far. Tuesday afternoon, we had a chance to go play. Ryan wasn't able to make it. He was supposed to come, and then had to miss out at the last minute. But we played a great club here in town, Old Orson Country Club. And so, didn't want to miss out on the opportunity, but it was, I think, 102 degrees when we teed off. And I mean, just, like kind of drenched, sweating. We rode in a cart. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's amazing how it affects your game and how it affects even your mental capacity out there, just the swings that you make, the decisions you make. And we were kind of chatting about that while we were on the golf course. So wanted to just talk about, some of the things that you can do as far as, we kind of titled it regarding recovery, but I think it's just in general performance, performing at your best when conditions aren't ideal. And so I'd love to make this kind of a little bit more of a little open back and forth from you guys, if you guys have any questions. But, some of the typical things that we always talk about is, really making sure that you're on top of your hydration is obviously the first and foremost that most people would go to when you're talking about hot, humid temperatures. And I think the keys there are, hydrating, not just hydrating often, but hydrating early. When you're out on the golf course, that is basically, it's too late to start hydrating when you get out there. And we've all heard that before, but even looking like 24 hours ahead of time, 2 days ahead of time is not a bad idea when you're going to have conditions like that. And we've talked about different products that we've used, different electrolytes, between the Live Pure, which is one of our go-tos, obviously, the Noon tablets, BioSteel. There's all these different products out there that are better than your sports drinks, like a Gatorade or a Powerade or those type of products. But when you're in a pinch, having some of, even, relying on some of those is not out of the question. I would not fault anybody for grabbing one of those drinks, because water just won't cut it. Water just doesn't it doesn't replenish what you're going to be losing. So ahead of time, 48 hours, 24 hours, just, at that point, making sure that you're getting a lot of water in you is going to suffice. I even did a couple Live Pure packets over the 2 days ahead of time.
Yep. Just
to make sure that I had some of those extra electrolytes in my system. And I found it interesting. I've started using the Whoop strap again, and the hydration and having the electrolytes on these hot days, I've noticed a big impact on my recovery score with my Whoop. So there is definitely a correlation on it helping me sleep a little bit better, but also just kind of replenishing the body, and the salt and the electrolytes, all of that has a big impact on, just our body is an electrical system, right? And the Whoop is measuring basically the electricity in the heart. It's measuring how well we respond. It's measuring electrical impulses. And so it's all tied together in very complex ways. But by hydrating, you're not just going to help yourself out when you're on the golf course, but you're helping yourself out with your pre-recovery, recovering the couple nights before, getting the right amount of sleep, and making sure that all that's going the way that you want it to. And then, like I said, doing it early, doing it often. That's why we always talk about the big glass of lemon water in the morning. Having that little boost in the morning is like your head start for the day. And according to Robert Yang, he suggests, 50% of your body weight, take that in ounces of water every single day. So a 200-pound guy would drink 100 ounces of water. I would say step that up, maybe even another quarter, so maybe instead of 100 ounces, 125 ounces. And that's just a loose number that I'm throwing out, but, know that you're going to need to replenish even more. So step that number up a little bit. And half seems like a lot to some people, but when you're in conditions like this, it's definitely necessary.
Yeah. Which the Live Pure do you prefer? The powder, or do they have tablets? And I was
they just have
the powder.
No, they just have the little tear packets. I don't have any with me, but they've got 3 different kinds. They've got the energy, which it just has some caffeine in it. And it's all very natural, no added sugars, anything like that.
Right.
There's a couple of them out there. That Liquid IV has gotten really popular.
Joe
but
Rogan.
that one has quite a bit of sugar in it from what I remember.
Yeah, so a ton.
Yeah, the Live Pure does not have nearly the sugar and doesn't have any added sugar. So it's all natural products. But they have 3 different types. They have the energy, they have the hydrate, and then they have the recovery. I don't know what the difference in the recovery and the hydrate as far as ingredients wise. There's a couple things in the recovery that are not in the hydrate. I kind of look at it as, I do the hydrates if it's, while I'm playing or even after I'm playing. And then a lot of times I'll do the recovery like in the morning, almost. Sometimes I've even mixed that in with that morning lemon water. I'll do a bigger, like a full Nalgene and just fill the whole thing with water, squirt the lemon, and then put the recovery packet in there too. You could do the recovery right after your round or in the evening as well. But a lot of times I'll do the hydrate afternoon into the evening, and then the recovery packet in the morning.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, you're committed to that. That's excellent. Here, I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Yeah, because I think that it's Live Pure without the E.
Yeah, I wonder if what kind of a hit or boost they've taken with the Live Golf and Live Pure, because it's LIV, just like Live Golf.
LIVIN.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the first SEO person is Live Pure with an E.
With an E, yeah. I've gone to that site on accident several times.
I just did the same thing. Like, wait a second, what the heck is this guy?
Yeah, so LIVPUR. Full disclosure, they are one of our sponsors, and we are an affiliate of them. Use the code 18strong for 20% discount.
Subtle pitch.
Hey, you save, we all win.
Yeah, it's pretty delicious too. It's and if you've another application is if you've had a few at night and you don't think you're gonna feel great in the morning, I drink that before I go to bed sometimes. If we've had a night,
yeah,
and I think it helps a lot.
Well, that's that's the next thing on my list is, how does alcohol affect our recovery level? So obviously alcohol is going to end up dehydrating you some, and possibly quite a bit depending on the amount and also the conditions. So, when you're out on the golf course on a hot day, as delicious as cold beers can be, they are going to impact that hydration level, right? And alcohol is one of the things that will really screw up your sleep. That's definitely something that has been tracked with all Whoop users, is increased amounts of alcohol will mess up your sleep. They mess up your hydration. Also noted is the timing of alcohol. So the closer you have alcohol towards bedtime is typically, this doesn't happen for everybody, but I would say most people will probably see this trend. The closer you are to bedtime, or the later you drink alcohol, is going to impact your REM sleep and your deep sleep quite a bit more. So you're going to get, even if you sleep a long time, say you sleep 8-9 hours, that the quality of that sleep will be much less. So, just know that having that later in the afternoon, or the more cocktails you have, that's going to impact that a lot. And you're right, Ryan. I mean, when you do then factor that in, say you do have a couple drinks on the golf course, you have a couple drinks afterwards, it's not a bad idea to then have some of those electrolytes or something like that before you go to bed. Or if you are having, you're out and you're on a golf trip and you are kind of ripping it up a little bit, to have some of those on hand and have a couple of them throughout the day, along with a bunch of water, is the best way to do it. Or even kind of, making sure that you're drinking more than just the cocktails on the course, or, obviously watching the amount. But that's possibly the biggest trend that I've seen with recovery, is the effect that alcohol has on it. I remember Rory McIlroy talking about when he started wearing the Whoop and started really looking at the numbers. He would normally go out to dinner the week of a tournament and, maybe go have a couple glasses of wine, but he noticed that even a glass or two of wine was really impacting his recovery score in the morning. And so he started to not drink at all, especially the nights of competition, because he knew that he wanted to be at his highest recovery level in the morning. And when you know that you have a round of golf and it's going to be 100 degrees, and you wake up in the morning, if you're on something like a Whoop where you can have it shows you the score, you want to have the highest score possible, right? You want to go into that round as prepared as you possibly can be. And so that's definitely going to be a big factor. Food also can have a big factor on that. The timing of when you're eating, the later you eat at night is also going to impact what your body's doing throughout the night. So if your body is having to process food, and digest, you're tapping into that parasympathetic nervous system, but you're kicking systems on that really would be better off being more devoted towards the recovery of your muscles and, kind of replenishing the body. But if you have a late meal, especially depending on what you're eating, say you go out to a steak dinner at 11 o'clock. I know like in some places of the world, like late dinners. I remember talking to our parents when they came back from Spain, dinner didn't happen until like 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. And
Right.
if your body is not accustomed to that, then your body's processing all that. Then if maybe you had some fried food or processed food, it's a whole cascade of decisions that you can really start to just kind of check off and get rid of the bad things and, look at more of the healthy habits, and all of these little things impact the way that your body then processes and recovers the next day.
Gotcha. So sometimes I get this backwards. So the deep sleep stage, that's when your body recovers, and the REM is when your mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I tend to get that mixed up too. But yeah, the deep sleep is more the recovery of the body. The REM is more like the mental processing. I think we have that right.
I think so
We should
too.
double check that.
We're not sleep people. All right, I will double check that though. I'll be like Jamie on Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Right.
So Marina, does coffee have a dehydrating effect?
I believe it does. I think the more concerning part of coffee is going to be the caffeine piece of it than the dehydration. And again, I don't know exactly what the impact on dehydration levels is with caffeine, but with caffeine, obviously, or with coffee, we know that, caffeine has like a long half-life. So really keeping an eye on when you have that last bit of caffeine is going to, again, so much of this boils down to what then happens when you're trying to sleep, because sleep is really when our body recovers, processes, and does all of the things that we need to then get in the most optimal state. So if our caffeine levels are high and we have them late in the day, then that's going to change our circadian rhythms and the way our hormones respond throughout the night, of when we're getting tired, when we're waking. So that's where I would be more cognizant of when and how much coffee you're having. We've all heard somebody say, oh, well, I can have a cup of espresso before I go to bed and it doesn't impact my sleep. You may be able to fall asleep, but I guarantee that it's still impacting the quality of your sleep. I used to think that too, like, oh, I could have a cup of coffee at 5 o'clock in the evening and no big deal. But when you start to track this stuff, you'll see that, again, you might be able to fall asleep by 9 o'clock and sleep until 7 in the morning. But when you pull up, if any of you guys aren't familiar with the Whoop, I'm going to pull this up just flash it on the screen. And it shows you for your sleep. Let me see. It shows you like how much light sleep you get, how much time you're awake, how much REM sleep you have, and how much deep sleep you have. So for those of you that are watching this, you can see my light sleep was pretty high, 2 hours and 30 minutes of the, how long was I asleep? How long was I in bed? 6 hours and 27 minutes I was in bed, but 2 hours and 32 minutes of that was light sleep. So that just means that, that wasn't good quality sleep. Now, on a night where you've had a lot of caffeine, or you've had some drinks, or you've had food late at night, you'll see that light sleep number become really prominent, and your deep sleep and your REM sleep will really shrink down. And so you could sleep for 10 hours but it could be really, really crappy sleep. And so you can wake up, still be exhausted. And when you're exhausted, we all know that our body doesn't move the way we want it to. It doesn't react the way we want it to. Golf is all a game of speed and power, right? Well, the pistons aren't going to be moving quite as fast if you're really run down from a bad night of sleep or the day before, or you trained really, really hard the day before. And, that impacts your ability to recover for the next day. So that's where all of these little gadgets and tools, as much as I'm not really a gadget and tool guy, I found this to be really, really helpful, just to see, where I am on a daily basis, and for the athletes that really have to perform. Like if you're going to play your club championship, or you have an amateur tournament, or you are just going for a member guest weekend or whatever, and you want to perform at your best, it allows you to almost time it properly to be most optimally recovered and ready to perform, because you can kind of gauge the good and bad habits, and you start to see those things tracking over time. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It applies to a lot of things. Like if you have a meeting at work, and you need to be fresh for it in the morning. Okay, don't go out boozing. Don't drink a bunch of coffee. Be ready in the morning. That's our job.
Yeah.
Those guys just happen to have a much more fun job than a lot of us.
It
Yeah,
sounds like it's good to maybe just have steak and eggs in the morning, get a lot of protein, and drink some beer. Get that down early.
Get it down early.
Yeah.
So Jim's turning us all into alcoholics.
I like you, Jim.
Yeah.
It's a solid.
It's called time management.
That's
Right.
right. It's hard to argue with that.
Victoria, I don't know so she asked what is considered a good number for light sleep and REM. I think it's very individual, first of all. We could probably find in the Whoop database. They have a great website where they do a lot of research studies, and they're basically a company that's tracking all of this stuff across the board. So that's the other kind of neat part, is that they have all these numbers and they have all this data for probably now millions of people. And so they're starting to see different trends. So I'm sure we can find some more information on that. And also there's like different times when you're going to be more likely to have good REM sleep than deep sleep. Like I think the deep sleep happens a little earlier on at night than the REM sleep happens a little bit later. Yes, Brandon mentions the Oura Ring is similar to the Whoop. Brandon, I think the Air Force uses the Oura, do they not?
Both. So it just depends, right? So it was pretty interesting. So Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, when I was active duty, they had a research and development wing where they did tests, right? So a lot of surveys, and they would compare the Whoop to, a Garmin to the Oura Ring. And so they had found that, for the algorithm in the Oura Ring provided better results based on the inputs that, the participants in the study were a part of. So it was a multifaceted study. They got into even different things where there were, people had to drink shakes and they had to do the workouts, and, some of the shakes had, more of something and less of something. And it was really interesting because they kind of had to get into that. Well, needs to be blind. It needs to be measurable, right? Where people are actually putting in, well, how do you feel? Right. And what did you do yesterday? Oh, I drank 12 beers, right? And I had 2 hours of sleep. My workout is crappy. So
Right.
they could get into that where they statistically could, get into proving different things. So they went with the Oura, and they don't tell you why, right? But so I tried both the Whoop and the Oura, and both very similar. The nice thing about the Oura is it stays charged longer. And so I actually, wearing a ring on your finger. But I think the Whoop is better if you want to like record like your actual workouts, right? I think within the Whoop app, you can say, hey, I'm going to go play golf, and it'll track your metrics for that. Whereas the Oura Ring is really just like a sleep and recovery tracker. I know they're trying to update the firmware, but there's only so much you can pack into a ring.
Right. Yeah. Like the Whoop will even track, you know, if you're going for a run or a bike ride or something, it'll GPS track you too. So, you know, we'll give you your distance and some of the different things like that. And it can even tie into like a Strava or some of those other apps that track as well. But yeah, for all of this stuff, I've heard good things for the Oura. I don't know that much about the Garmin tracking. I don't know that much about, I have an Apple Watch, but I don't use any of the fitness and health stuff on there. So I can't really speak to that. So.
All right. Yeah, I love my Garmin. So Victoria uses it and Marina uses it. I use it for golf. I've never used it for any of this stuff though.
Yeah, in fact, so I got the Apple Watch with the intention of using it for all these things. And to be honest, I wish I got a Garmin to track the golf a little bit easier. And I use probably 5% of the capabilities of this thing. And it doesn't even have a watch face that I like. I want it to just look like an old school digital watch, and it doesn't do that. So spent a lot of money on a fancy watch that I don't use much of. Back to a couple other things just regarding sleep though, because, you know, sleep is obviously a topic we've talked about a lot, and just different things to help you optimize that is, you know, first of all, consistent bedtimes. Again, back to the Whoop, you know, it kind of tracks all these things and all these different habits too. So it'll tell you like you're sticking with really consistent habits on, you know, when you're going to sleep, when you're waking up, and it shows that those even help to improve some of those different metrics. But the more consistent you can be with your going to bed and waking up, it's all again about those circadian rhythms and your body kind of like listening to your body almost, but your body being able to shut down at the same time. It starts to get into the habits of, okay, it's, you know, 9 o'clock at night. My body's starting to wind down. I should be laying down, maybe reading a little bit and, you know, having a blackout curtain, and it should be time to close the eyes, and then waking up at a similar time in the morning. I don't remember who I learned this from, but when you wake up and you hit the snooze button, you know, I try to never use the snooze button anymore after I heard this, because when you wake up, typically, especially if you wake up without an alarm clock and you kind of naturally wake up, if you've ever been laying in your bed in like, let's say Saturday morning, you know, you wake up and maybe it's 7 o'clock, you just kind of naturally wake up and you're like, oh, I'm going to snooze for a little bit longer. Have you ever noticed that like, if you do fall asleep, you usually fall asleep for like another hour to an hour and a half, and then you wake up again kind of naturally? That's one of those almost like the circadian rhythm of, you know, you kind of go into these different waves of sleep. And so when you decide to snooze, if you wake up naturally and you hit the snooze button, and then all of a sudden it's at like a 10-minute window or 9-minute window, which is kind of weird.
Right.
You start to get into that rhythm again. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're jolted out of it. And that's why sometimes when you snooze, you like wake up in a bit of a daze, and you can actually be in a funk for a little bit of time, or even your whole morning, because you basically pulled yourself out of a sleep state. And so your body is totally thrown off by that snooze button. So I would suggest, you know, get into as consistent of a pattern as you can with when you go to bed and when you wake up. But I highly suggest not snoozing. You know, if you do decide to go back to sleep, just go back to sleep and let yourself naturally wake up again. If you have the ability to do that, you don't have a tea time to get to or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a major offender of the snooze button. Like I set my alarm for half an hour before I have to get up so that I can snooze 3 times.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah, that's awful.
Why didn't we have this conversation 15 years ago when we started this thing?
Well, you know, maybe if you read the book Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson, or there's a golf fitness podcast that did an interview with him a while back that probably talked about that too.
Oh, if only I knew a guy,
yeah.
golf fitness podcaster.
A couple other things just regarding sleep. And seriously though, that book, I keep looking over here because it's right on my shelf. Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson is the best, most complete book I've read on, you know, sleep habits, what you can do to really optimize your sleep. A couple of other things he talks about in there is just, obviously we've all heard a lot of these different things, the blackout curtains, making sure you have a dark and cool room, the temperature, the cooler temperatures help your body also kind of get into that hot, deeper sleep mode. But on these hot, humid days, for those of you that are taking any kind of magnesium supplements, those can be very helpful with regard to the hydration cramps that can occur, or the dehydration cramps that can occur as well. So topical magnesium, or even taking oral magnesium. And when we had Tony Soib on, I remember him talking about it being, you want the chelated version of magnesium if you're taking a pill of it. Don't ask me the details of why, but I remember him saying that. Any questions on any of that stuff? Marina asked a question about workouts and stuff with her competitive golf season that I want to get to. But
Yeah,
any questions on some of those things?
What do you think is the best off the shelf? I hesitate to call it a sports drink, because I know you and I are, again, not anti Powerade and Gatorade if that's all you have available, but given what most pro shops have, what would you probably try and grab?
Yeah, so I did this the other day because I was just kind of running out of here to go to the course, and I brought a couple of the Live Pure packets, but I knew that again it was going to be 105 degrees or whatever. So I ran up to the store and grabbed an 8-pack of those. I think it's called Body Armor.
Oh, yeah.
And I got the low calorie, no sugar added stuff. Again, probably not the greatest, but just kind of briefly looked a little bit cleaner than some of the other ones. I've heard good things about it. And the fact that it was, the no sugar added, lower calorie stuff is, I wasn't too concerned. Again, it's not like if you're not drinking these things every day, not a huge deal. If you're going out and it's a one-time thing. Now, if you're playing golf every single day and you're drinking 2 or 3 Gatorades while you're out on the golf course, I wouldn't recommend that. That's when I would say, get yourself a dedicated get yourself a dedicated electrolyte, either powder you can scoop in or the tablets or whatever. But in a pinch like that, rather than just relying on the water jug on the golf course, we packed a big ice cold cooler full of Body Armor and some waters. And I mean, we were pouring something every single hole, making sure that we were just staying super, super hydrated. And the Body Armor had really good flavor. I think we had the peach mango or something like that. So it was delicious.
Yeah, they had a big push in the soccer, at our soccer club, I think in the fall, where they were giving out water bottles that said Body Armor on it. And they were kind of telling us about it a little bit. And then kind of a similar how you're describing it, where it's not as sugary as like a Powerade or like Gatorade. And those, I feel like they leave like a syrupy film on your mouth, especially when it's 95 degrees outside. It's not real refreshing.
Yeah, to me, this almost had a little bit more of like a juice taste to it. Like when you have almost like a V8 juice, like a carrot juice with some fruit mixed in. It almost had a little bit more of that flavor to it. But I don't know who owns them. I didn't do a whole lot of digging, so don't think this is a spot for Body Armor. But
right. It's probably Coke or Pepsi.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of the bigger companies. But yeah, just make sure that you're smart and you have something, because it really will. And by like the 16th, 15th, 16th hole, the guy that I was riding the cart with, he had a bad swing and then a couple bad putts, and he's like, he was just exhausted. He's like, the heat is a definite factor right now. You just start making different decisions. You don't think through your shots, kind of even getting lazy on pre-shot routines and things like that. So minimizing the mental mistakes is huge.
Yeah, sucks the life out of you. This, I don't know if you know anything about this, like iced tea or like green tea, would that do anything for you? I do love a good iced tea. Unsweetened.
Yeah, an unsweetened tea. think that's going to kind of fall in line with the question that Marina had earlier. You know, is that as hydrating as? I don't think that's going to be as hydrating as like a water. It's not going to have the electrolytes in it. So it's not something that I would recommend you really taking out on the course. Also, tea is better with the caffeine. You know, green tea is really good. You know, it's I don't know the difference in the caffeine, but it's better to drink green tea like in the afternoon than it is to drink coffee. You're not going to get the same kind of caffeine buzz that you will from coffee. But I would say, and this is kind of personal experience, both myself and my buddy TJ in Kansas City, we both noted that, you know, on a really hot day, having coffee in the morning and then going and playing, we both kind of felt almost a little bit jittery. And I think that probably had to do a little bit with the dehydration factor mix in with the caffeine. And it just wasn't a great combo. And the last thing you want on the tee box or standing over a ball is to, you know, like feel uncomfortable, feel that extra tension, feel that jitteriness. So I would just be careful with the amount of caffeine you're ingesting when you're playing around a golf.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. You ready for the Q&A portion of the Crew and A call?
Yeah, bring it.
Bring it on. All right. So starting with Ms. Marina. So at the moment, I'm playing golf most of the days with club championships, scratch matches, club knockouts, county championships, etc. I feel it's important that I try to save my energy levels whenever I can, but I have a bad conscious that I'm mostly working on mobility exercises at the moment. So any suggestions what I should do with the strength exercises?
Yeah. So this is a great question, by the way, because a lot of people fall into this category.
Right.
And Chris Finn talked about this a little bit on the episode that we did with him, which was great too. So I'm going to reiterate a few of the things that he had mentioned. But there's nothing wrong with backing off of your strength training a little bit and making sure. I'm a big believer in making sure that you're doing your mobility stuff to make sure the body is moving well, right? So, and you're totally right, Marina. You need to conserve your energy. If you're playing a lot of golf and highly competitive golf, that's your main focus, right? So your main focus is not going in and getting as strong as possible, or you know, any kind of a body transformation. It's like, no, my intention is to play good golf right now. So you need to make sure that you're doing some of the mobility stuff to keep the body moving well, hitting all the big parts, you know, the neck, the shoulders, the trunk rotation, the hips. Make sure all of those things are moving well and feeling well, making sure your back is staying strong. But as far as the strength-based workouts, I would suggest doing something a couple of times a week. And that something could be a much shorter version of your typical workouts. And I would recommend sticking with this, and this might sound a little bit strange, but sticking with a little bit of heavier weight, but doing less reps of it. And Chris talked about that too. You know, we want to kind of maintain as much of our strength as possible, but we don't need to do a ton of volume when you're already getting a lot of volume of just movement and activity from your golf. So what you want to do is maximize the reps that you're doing. Obviously, be safe. Don't pick silly heavy weights, but you know, if you're doing some squats or some lunges, I would say, you know, stick in like the 4 to 6 rep range and pick a decent size weight that you feel comfortable with. You feel good about your posture and your form, but it's going to challenge you a little bit. And I would say then, you know, do 4 or 5 sets of just 4 to 6 reps. So maybe even 4 sets of that, because that's going to stimulate the muscles to stay strong. It's going to help basically just kind of maintain what you have. You're not trying to build strength. You're not trying to build muscle mass at this point. This makes me think about when I worked in the gym that had a lot of hockey players coming through it. And those guys would come in after the season, you know, after, you know, our beginning of playoffs or whenever they got knocked out of the playoffs. And those guys would come in and they would try to put on as much strength and mass as they could over those 2 to 3 months, because they knew that during the season, they were not going to wither away, but they were going to be burning a lot of calories. They're not going to be in the gym nearly as much. They're not going to be as strong throughout the end of the season. But then what they would do is when they could get into the gym throughout the season, they would do a little bit of a heavier workout. They would just try to hit the main body parts, you know, the push, the pull, the hinge, the lunges or squats, and just make sure that they're staying as strong as possible. But knowing the fact that they're going to lose a little bit, you know, most of them would come in 10, 15 pounds lighter by the end of the season because
Sure.
they're simply burning so many calories. So it's similar things happen with the golfers that are really playing a lot and are super busy. You don't have time to do as much of the training. And when you're doing the training, you have to be cognizant of, well, I'm playing golf tomorrow, so I can't hit it super hard. I don't want to deteriorate my energy or strength or be sore or hurt myself for what's really important to me, which is my round of golf over the next 3-4 days. Marina, does that make sense? Does that help at all?
Yeah, sure. That's a good advice to do just 4 to 6 reps and maybe 4 of them just with a smaller weight, with a sort of somewhat a good weight. Because I did the other day, I went to the gym, I did lunges with weights, and I did the full reps according to the program. And I tell you, for 3 days, even though I had my Theragun on it 3 times a day, I had my Chimera outfit, I did sort of try to do everything, but I was so damn sore anyway. So yesterday I decided, because of club championship, day before yesterday, we had a 2-day club championship. I said, all right, I'm not going to the gym because I can't feel so sore. So hence the question, but this is a good idea. Yeah. So twice a week is a super thing. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, I think back to when the PGA Championship was here in St. Louis. This just speaks to how different everybody is, how individual everybody is on this. So Brooks Koepka, you know, obviously won the 2018 PGA Championship, which was here in St. Louis, and he was seen at the gym on Sunday morning, bench pressing 225 pounds and, you know, doing all these super heavy lifts and basically just doing his regular workout, where most golfers would say, there's no way I'm going and doing that, because that's just going to take away from my performance later on. And if I was working with Brooks, you know, my suggestion would have been to not do that or not go nearly as heavy, but that's his thing. That's what he likes to do. Obviously it didn't hurt him that day. It didn't hurt him the other major championship days that he won. But everybody's a little bit different. So like many answers that we give, it's going to depend on you and how your body responds. You know, it could be the day before. Yeah, you do just a couple sets with 4 to 6 reps, a good solid weight, but take long breaks in between the exercises. You know, take your time with it. Again, this isn't where you're going to go and try to, you know, make yourself as exhausted as possible, or you're trying to get a good sweat in or any of that. You're trying to maintain your strength. You're trying to make sure that your range of motion is really good, that everything's moving really well. So take all those factors into account and make sure that the goal stays the goal, that the next day when you step on the tee box, your body feels good. It doesn't feel drained because of, you know, I mean, that's the opposite of what we want when you step on that tee box.
Right. I would imagine like Koepka, you know, busting out, you know, bench presses before his round is probably a big mental thing too, or getting rid of a lot of nervous energy. You know, your adrenaline is crazy high when you are playing in the final group at a major. So, I mean, that could just be part of his, you know, therapy, which I know it is for me. That relaxes me a ton whenever I lift weights.
Yeah. And, you know, I didn't see what the workout consisted of. Obviously, pretty strong guy. So maybe
Right.
he was only doing 2-3 reps and then he was taking a good long break. And then, you know, so it was like he didn't feel like that was going to threaten his performance at all. He didn't feel like he was putting himself at risk for injury. And you're right. Maybe that's just helping him kind of clear the brain, get the nerves out, get a little bit of that nervous energy out, and almost, you know, get him primed and prepped and ready to go.
Yeah. Cut off there a little bit at the end, but we get the gist.
Yep.
Okay, so we got a couple of questions, a little bit off topic today, but nothing wrong with that. Do we have a routine specifically for the feet that's similar to the daily motion routine
Specifically for the feet,
for the feet?
we don't. We did put together, and I believe I found those videos, the videos that we put together for True
Oh, for
Links
true.
Wear,
Right.
where basically we did some self-mobilization kind of drills where, you know, you're basically kind of loosening up or doing a little bit of rolling, kind of like foam rolling, but with a lacrosse ball or tennis ball, or we use the rad rounds, I think, where you kind of roll out the bottom of the feet, roll out the calf muscles. And then we showed some different calf stretches and even some strengthening exercises. But it's not something that was necessarily like the EFDs where you do them every single day. It was more just, you know, looking at foot health and making sure that it's not a forgotten piece of your workout program. So my suggestion would be that at some point during your week, you do something that's related to the foot and ankle. Have that built into your program. Now, most of our programs include some variation of a split squat. That right there is one of the best exercise, even though we think of it like as a kind of a quad or glute working exercise.
Right.
When you do the split squat and you're kind of going down into the bottom position and let your knee drift forward, like you're trying to get your knee in front of your toes, which we've talked about before, that's really working on that ankle mobility as well. That's a big piece of your workout program, of just your foot and ankle being able to handle any load that you're putting on your body for lower body exercises. But I would include, you know, some sort of calf exercise, whether that be strengthening, stretching, or a little bit of both. Split squats will help that, but some calf raises. And then many times we forget about the front side of the shin and ankle. We do so much for the calves, like the traditional calf raises, but the front side, which is called the anterior tibialis, that muscle, like when you pull your toes up, you can feel that muscle flex on the front of your shin. That's your anterior tibialis. That muscle helps out a lot just in regards to walking, running. That has some action to it and control and stability that is often forgotten. And if we don't work both sides of the coin there, you know, the front of the shin and the back of the shin, which is your calves, you know, you're looking at imbalance there. So a simple way to work those is lean yourself up against the wall, like have your butt off the wall, lean yourself up like you're standing, and basically put your weight on your heels where your toes are kind of just hovering in the air, and just pull your toes up towards your shins and then point them down and then pull up. So kind of pull them up, point them down, pull them up. And you're basically just working the front of the shins there. And you can do that standing. They even make a couple little devices that you can hook on your, like put over the top of your feet and hook weights to, where you can like pull the weight up to work those muscles in the front of the shin as well. So maybe we can see if we can figure out where those videos are and post those in the Facebook group. I know that they're in the Facebook group already, but
Marina's got them.
do you have them? Is that in the Facebook group, Marina? Awesome.
Oh.
Would you mind tagging me in the comments section? And then that way I will know exactly where they are.
Okay.
That'll highlight it. And then we can kind of repost those. Thank you very much for doing that.
Nice. Can you walk uphill? Does that help the front of your shins?
It can, but if the front of your shins are weak, that can also, if you start doing that can cause some shin splints because you're not used to any kind of strengthening there. So it can cause, you know, a little bit of discomfort and trouble too. But no, it's a good way to start, but just be careful that if you start walking up or running up a bunch of hills,
right,
that can cause some issues. Also, if those anterior tibialis muscles are weak and you have limited range of motion, shin splints can happen because when you're running or walking, you're all of a sudden having to kind of clear your toes, pull your toes up more to get up that that little incline, or when you're running, you have to pull your toes up just to clear the ground. And if those muscles are weak or your range of motion is limited, that can really kind of play into shin splints because your body's just not used to it. So if you start running, or you kind of get active and you start doing these things, but haven't been doing it in a while, then that can cause some more discomfort there if you're not, properly trained for it yet.
Gotcha. So then Bruce has a question on the call here. So what are some of your best ground force reaction exercises or drills?
So we've talked about some of the medicine ball drills. First of all, just anybody that struggles with lower body strength and balance, those kind of things. First and foremost, I like them to get really good at some of the basic exercises like the split squats, the squats, even learning how to hinge and do some deadlifting, those type of exercises. Because if you don't know how to handle your body in just those simple exercises, it's going to be hard to then add any speed to those without, your body having some other compensations going on. So that's why we always start everybody with basic squatting exercises, maybe elevating their heels up a little bit if there's some sort of limitation in their hips, knees, any of those areas, and getting them good at those so they can handle a little bit of weight. It's kind of like what we talked about. I don't know. I think this was last week. I was talking about that racquetball player that I had.
Yep.
That was having a lot of, calf issues, muscle strains. And we noticed that he was just really weak with some of these exercises. And so here's a guy who's running around, sprinting, cutting, and rotating and hitting a ball with a racket. He's experiencing all of these issues with his lower body, but he didn't have any good, basic strength in some of these different exercises. So his hips were weak, his quads were weak, his hamstrings were weak. And so now that we've started building those up, I just saw him this morning and he hasn't had any issues with any other calf strains over the last, I think, 3 weeks. And he's been playing a lot of racquetball. And all we've done is start to build up some of his strength in these different areas. Then once you are comfortable with some of those, and I'm not saying you have to get to the point where you can do body weight squats or anything. I mean, like squat your body weight on a bar or anything. But once you're just kind of getting more comfortable with that, then you can work on even some, medicine ball throws, because that's going to kind of get some of that shifting, the trail foot to the forefoot, medicine ball slams, and even getting into some light plyometrics, just working on some low box jumps, jumping and landing, 6-inch box, 8-inch box, 12-inch box, where you can, work on exploding up and then landing soft, doing some of those type of exercises. And then even some cable chops, things like that are going to allow you to create some force off of the ground where you're having to, use some resistance, but you're having to almost create the stability of that resistance, or the stability to move that resistance with your feet and the torque of the body.
Gotcha. And I know the answer to this question. What are your thoughts on standing on like a medicine ball, or what's that, half moon?
Oh, the Bosu ball.
Right.
What did I just was reading something the other day, and they said, the guy said, yes, we have a Bosu ball, and yes, we use it a lot. But the only thing we use it for is to do push-ups, to just kind of create a little instability on push-ups. But it wasn't something that he would add weight to. It was just, more for a little bit of instability there. I don't have a Bosu ball here. I don't use those instability devices to do any kind of other exercises like squats or things like that. I'm a big believer that, every time that we're hitting a golf shot, anytime we're really playing any sport, the ground isn't moving underneath us. So we need to be able to figure out how to move our body and create force from the static ground. Now, sometimes you can be on different angles and different positions, but I've yet to hit a golf shot where I'm standing on a wobbly surface on the golf course. So I would rather you learn how to handle and move weight, move resistance, move with speed off of a solid foundation You can build your balance by doing some of the more unilateral type exercises. You can put yourself in a half kneeling position. You can kneel. You can do some of those things where you're changing the forces and the angles. But I'm not a huge fan of, unless I'm doing like an ankle rehab or something like that, where I just need to get a couple things learning how to fire together. Like standing on a little foam pad, but that's more going to be like a rehab related thing where somebody with a sprained ankle or something where they're really trying to get just some of the stimulation back and get those neural patterns to refire. But I don't use unstable surfaces with much of the strength training at all.
Gotcha. And I remember seeing the video of Ryan O'Reilly, who is St. Louis Blues team captain right now, standing on a yoga ball, just juggling the puck. But we're not taking a lot of shots off the ice that I recall.
Well, and even that. So here's kind of my pet peeve.
Here we go. I love it. It's getting fired up.
Here's the deal. So let's say Ryan O'Reilly is, so I'm going to speak to any of the trainers. I know we've got some medical professionals on here. Let's say Ryan O'Reilly is your client, your athlete. Or Ryan, we were just talking with some of the people in our family. Bradley Beal, the basketball player, went to a local high school here. So some of the guys in our family coached, and one of our uncles coached Bradley. Some of our cousins went to school with him. He just signed a $250 million contract, right? So, but now take that into the golf world, because golf, you eat what you kill. So if I took and I put in Hayden Buckley's program, Hayden, you're going to be on a golf ball doing squats or swinging your golf club. Let's say that is a great exercise. Let's say that does transfer over to golf somehow, which it doesn't. Right. What happens if he falls and breaks his arm? How good is that for Hayden Buckley's golf career? So at some point you have to have this risk reward of, does doing this stupid exercise, is there enough reward for me to risk him getting hurt? So Ryan O'Reilly, I saw the same thing. He was standing on a Bosu ball. He was maybe juggling a thing. He was hopping. It was kind of crazy. But if he falls and breaks something, like why put that risk? Greg Rose, the head of TPI, said something that I'll never forget in the first event I ever went to at TPI. He said, your job as a fitness professional, medical professional, is basically not to make your golfer worse, because you can do a lot of stupid things to make a great player good, like injure them or, teach them bad mechanics or something like that. So all these guys are at the peak of their game, or at the top level of the game. Don't do something stupid that could jeopardize their career, or any of you on this call. The last thing you want is to be trying a silly exercise and tear your rotator cuff, or pull a hamstring, or twist your ankle, or fall. There's a story of a guy that we know here in St. Louis that was on one of those Bosu balls, he was on a big Swiss ball doing dumbbell presses with like 60 pounds. And the ball popped, and he fell, and he snapped both wrists.
Oh,
yikes.
Yeah. Imagine how well that goes when that's a PGA Tour player, or when you have your club championship the next week. Imagine what your golf game looks like for the next 6 months. So
non-existent. Right.
That's another reason why I don't do some of the balance instability things, standing on a Swiss ball, because first of all, they don't carry over very well. And second, my goal is the opposite of getting people hurt. My first and foremost goal for all of you in our crew, for anybody that we have in the gym, anybody that sees anything on our Instagram or any of the videos that we post or videos we post, first and foremost is do no harm, keep you safe, prevent injury. Then we move on to getting stronger, performance, all of those pieces as well. But to put yourself at risk does not outweigh the reward.
Gotcha.
Often their contracts prohibit them from certain activities like skydiving and certain things like that.
Right. Riding motorcycles a big one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I consider that some of those things should also be in those contracts because, we've all seen people get hurt doing something much less risky or dangerous, right? Like we've all done
Yeah.
certain things and it's like, how did that happen? Well, let's not even put that into play by putting somebody at risk with some of those exercises.
One of my son-in-laws is a fighter pilot and he's restricted on certain activities because the Air Force says, we spent $2 million training you. We don't want you to bang your hand where you can't fly a
Yeah.
jet. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. I think
Yeah.
those athletes like P90X should also be on that list.
Yeah.
Or insanity.
Right. Yeah.
It's too much
CrossFit.
jumping. Yeah, CrossFit. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, my man. We are 3:01. So you overachieved again.
Yeah. All right, guys. Great seeing everybody's faces. Great having you guys on. Excellent questions this week. And we'll catch up again with all of you guys next week.
Yeah, so we're on for next week. So don't miss that because we're gonna have
Have
to
your
take
beer in the
a
morning.
week off.
Take care.
All
Cold. All right, see you guys.
right, guys.
Bye.
Stay strong.